This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening and thank you for being with us. Fires continue to burn out of control across the province tonight, and more people are being forced from their homes. This time in northern Manitoba, where several communities have been evacuated. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod is in studio now with the latest. So Gavin, walk us through what's been happening.
Well, Riley, firefighters have been trying to get a handle on several fires in northern Manitoba, fueled by hot, dry and windy weather. An out-of-control fire burning just kilometers away from Lynn Lake prompted a full evacuation, with people arriving in Thompson by car and bus. People have also been forced out of Sheridan, where a fire that quadrupled in size since yesterday has residents fleeing fast, moving through flames and thick smoke. This is what the sky looked like Monday in the northern Manitoba town of Sheridan. People only had an hour and a half notice to leave and go to Dauphin. The deputy mayor of the community of less than 100 is thinking about the people forced out.
We were told that the fire is 121 feet high and it's progressing quickly. We're a very, very small northern community. We have one road access.
Matheson says winds changed and threatened vital road access. That's why only those who are fighting the fire are allowed to stay.
If the winds change, potentially there could be a total loss.
The province said as of Tuesday afternoon, the fire was around 40,000 hectares in size.
We're a small community, so, we're all pretty close. It's terrible. For any one of us to lose anything, it would be absolutely devastating.
Almost 200 kilometers north, there was a mandatory evacuation Tuesday in the town of about 600 in Lynn Lake.
There's huge billowing clouds of smoke just outside of town. The winds have been pushing it away from town to the north, but with the forecast winds changing, coming towards town, it's not looking very good.
Evacuees from Lynn Lake are arriving in Thompson. The fire near their town is over 7,000 hectares in size and listed as out of control on the province's fire map.
We want as many people out as we can now while it's still an option.
Back in Sheridan, the focus is on safety.
Our main concern is their lives. And as long as we all get out and we're good.
Sheridan's deputy mayor says if there's rebuilding to do, they can at least do it as a community. In Lynn Lake, the mayor hopes to have 90% of the community out tonight. Riley.
Thank you, Gavin. That's the CBC's Gavin Axelrod in studio. Now, as of today, there are 18 active wildfires across the province. 12 of those are out of control. The province is also telling us that a firefighter was severely injured during the course of their firefighting duties on Sunday. The firefighter has been hospitalized. The province hasn't said where they were injured. Also today, the province reports the fire that started near Ingolf, Ontario, leading to evacuations in the Whiteshell, is now at nearly 4,000 hectares on the Manitoba side of the border. Now, all of those fires are also having an impact on the air we breathe. Environment Canada has issued air quality statements and warnings for parts of northern and eastern Manitoba. Now, that has some people looking for ways to protect themselves. The CBC's Zabina Ahmed has that story.
We have the half mask. This is MSA's half mask. You can see it has the P100 cartridges on both sides. That's going to help for air quality and breathing properly. You also have an Advantage 200LS mask, which is very similar to this.
Ian Burchell works with ABC Fire and Safety Equipment. He says sales of the respirators have significantly increased since the wildfire started earlier this month.
You're just going to put it on like this. And you just put it on around here. 2 straps here to put it on.
He says people are choosing these as they're lightweight and filter out 100% of the smoke.
Especially with the smoke that's going on in the province, when they're in the smoke-filled areas like Lac du Bonnet or up north in Lynn Lake area, they're using that quite a bit right now.
Plumes of smoke from wildfires have been blanketing Manitoba for weeks. Experts warn wildfire smoke can create health risks in the short and long term. Christopher Pascoe is an associate professor at the University of Manitoba's Physiology and Pathophysiology Department.
People will usually experience breathlessness, so difficulty breathing, catching your breath. You may notice that you cough more, have more mucus. If you're somebody who has lung disease, asthma, COPD. You may find that you need to use your medication more, or that it's not as effective.
Environment Canada meteorologist Justin Shelley urges everyone in affected areas to limit outdoors and monitor air quality.
This piece of equipment will go on the gable, and this one will go on to the eaves trough of the property. Okay, so that's going to give you 360 degrees of protection around your property.
Burchell says people are not just worried about their health but also their property. And this has also increased their sales of sprinkler kits and hoses.
This is mainly for cabin owners. We've been seeing a lot of the cabin owners come here and purchase the wildfire protection kit.
Burchell says he's been getting a lot of inquiries from cottage country, especially the Bird River area. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
All right, you're looking at some shots here of Winnipeg's skyline. Another hazy start to the day today, the result of some of the smoke from those wildfires, particularly in parts of eastern Manitoba. That's been pushing smoke into the Red River Valley. We have smoke advisories in place as well for parts of the north. Let's get a first check on our forecast now with meteorologist Colette Kennedy.
Thanks, Riley. And, we realize we've got a large part of the province that is under an air quality statement, have some alerts as well. And I'm going to go into more detail on those a little bit later in the show. And then on the other hand, it's that balance because we have conditions which aren't what we need, and yet they are quite lovely when you've got temperatures that look like this and a lot of sunshine to go around in most cases as well. So that heat, though, from Lynn Lake and those upper 20s, I was talking about it stretching towards the southeast, and that's what we've been experiencing. Winnipeg to 26 degrees this afternoon, getting even warmer as we move forward in time. Now, we do have clear skies tonight, around 14 through the overnight hours, but down to 12 by early tomorrow morning. Sunny skies, and right into the afternoon, maybe a little bit of high thin cirrus, and there it is, up to 27. What do the days beyond that look like? I'll have more details coming up.
All right, thanks, Colette. I know a lot of folks hoping for some rain across the province. Well, turning to some other news now, Manitoba judge has ruled that the province's Attorney General interfered in the case of a former fashion mogul in 2022. Criminal charges ended up being brought against Peter Nygard, and as Josh Crabb reports, he will still have to answer to those allegations.
Peter Nygard appeared via video in a Winnipeg courtroom from a prison in Ontario. He's serving an 11-year sentence after being found guilty of sexually assaulting 4 women in Toronto. Here in Winnipeg, how he ended up being charged has come under scrutiny. Provincial Court Judge Mary Kate Harvey ruled there was political interference. She told court Tuesday it's because the province's former Attorney General, Kelvin Goertzen, asked for a second opinion on an initial decision not to charge Nygard. The judge told court Goertzen's actions amounted to a serious abuse of process, but Harvey stopped short of ordering a stay of proceedings in Nygard's case in Manitoba because of the seriousness of the charges and public interest in the case. At the end of the day, every person, no matter how reviled, how notorious, how popular or unpopular, must receive equal treatment by the Attorney General and by the justice system, Harvey said in a written decision. As demonstrated by the evidence in this case, such respect for the rule of law was not extended to Nygard. He was charged in Manitoba in 2023 with sexual assault and forcible confinement involving 1 complainant, but only after Goertzen asked Saskatchewan prosecutors to review the complaints of 8 women. The Crown in Manitoba had already said there was no reasonable likelihood of conviction. Harvey ruled Goertzen was responding to mounting public and political pressure, and she said there is no policy in the province on when it's appropriate to get a second opinion on a decision not to charge. He appears to have been singled out because of the notoriety of his case, not because of any articulated or principled reasons.
This is essentially an unprecedented situation.
University of Manitoba Associate Professor of Law and former prosecutor Brandon Trask says the judge's decision sends a strong message.
Crown prosecutors have such an important role to play, and they cannot be interfered with by politicians.
Goertzen has previously said he stands by his decision to ask for a second opinion. He wouldn't do an interview Tuesday because the matter remains before the courts. Meanwhile, Manitoba won't say what, if any, changes will be made in light of this ruling. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
It's a new development to tell you about in the sale of Hudson's Bay. All of its stores will close by this coming Sunday, according to court documents that were filed today. There are 96 stores across the country, including 2 in Winnipeg. More than 8,000 employees will be laid off before the start of next week. Another 900 staff members who work at the Bay's distribution centers will be let go on June 15th, while 118 employees will remain on to wind down the company. Still ahead, more duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes could soon pop up in neighborhoods near you. This as a hearing on major zoning changes in Winnipeg is set for Monday. How it could affect your neighborhood still ahead. We're back right after this. Stay with us. Winnipeg City Council is preparing for what could be a long meeting next week. A hearing on major zoning changes is set for Monday, part of an agreement to get millions of dollars for housing from the federal government. But critics warn that money comes with some big strings attached. The CBC's Cameron McLean has more.
More duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes could soon pop up in neighborhoods near you. But if council goes ahead with proposed zoning changes next week, you might not hear about it until construction starts. In 2023, the city and feds signed an agreement worth more than $122 million through the Housing Accelerator Fund. To qualify, the city agreed to change its bylaws to speed up housing construction. Part of that includes allowing as-of-right construction of up to 4 units anywhere in the city, and up to 4 stories within 800 meters of frequent transit, all without the need for a public hearing. Mayor Scott Gillingham has said the changes will lead to more affordable housing in the city. University of Winnipeg political scientist Aaron Moore isn't so sure.
I don't know that this suddenly changes the economic sense for the development industry just because it sort of eases the process for them a bit.
Moore says there are other factors holding back construction, like the cost of materials and labor shortages. But the federal money can also pay for infrastructure, something the city desperately needs.
And so I ultimately we're giving away the capacity of residents within the city to participate in the planning process.
This hearing was supposed to happen in March, but councillors pushed it back to allow for more public consultation. Next week's meeting could be a long one. A hearing last November on zoning changes around shopping malls and commercial corridors lasted past midnight before councillors adjourned to another day. St. Vital councillor Brian Mays has heard concerns about the plan from many people in his ward.
Hard to know if it'll be 100 people in delegation or 200 or what, but we're expecting a lot more people to come and talk on this one than on malls and corridors. And of course, councillors can ask questions, so this could stretch out over several days.
To get the funding, the city must approve building permits for 14,000 units by next year. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province is delaying rollout of a screening program for a virus that can cause birth defects in babies. Last year's budget pledged the introduction of universal newborn screening for congenital cytomegalovirus, or CMV. It can lead to hearing loss, cognitive impairment, and other disabilities. Most people won't show any symptoms for the virus, and infected pregnant women can pass it along to their children. Early detection can prevent infants from infection after birth. The founder of the Canadian CMV Foundation says the province recently told him they have delayed the implementation by a full year.
I have friends that have had babies, and they've not told me about the CMV screen. So that could have been that they just weren't aware of it, but I suspected that there were some delays. And sure enough, the government called me a few weeks ago to let me know, there were some more delays, and they're expecting to get it done in November this year.
A provincial spokesperson told Radio Canada in an email last week the government is still working on establishing and resourcing CMV screenings. Meantime, Tétreault is taking his third Run with Rob campaign to Prince Edward Island this year. The run will see him run around the entire province to raise awareness for CMV. Well, it's not just Manitoba feeling the impacts of wildfires this spring. Thousands of people right across the prairies have been forced to leave their homes. In Saskatchewan, more than 4,000 residents of Peter Ballantine, Cree Nation, and Pelican Narrows were told to leave this morning, while in northern Alberta, nearly 1,400 residents of Swan Hills have been ordered out. It comes as firefighting efforts are challenged by dry and windy conditions. The CBC's Emily Williams reports.
I'm here in Whitecourt, where Swan Hills residents are settling in after evacuating their town last night. An out-of-control wildfire burning 7 kilometers north of their town pushed nearly 1,400 residents to pack their bags. The fire was 2,300 hectares this morning, where crews worked overnight using specialized night vision equipment. We heard from the mayor of Whitecourt this morning that over 700 residents have checked into the evacuation center behind me.
By having them people register, we get a good understanding of where they are. It's also important for if family are looking for them, like not everyone has a cell phone, but if family are looking for them, they can get registered in.
Swan Hills residents are no stranger to evacuation after having to undergo a similar process only 2 years ago. They say this time around, the process went very smoothly, and they know exactly what to grab when they get that order.
We packed up suitcases, we have our important paper box house to begin with. We just scooped that, made sure we had the animals, the kids, treats, lots of treats.
Tell me what was going through your head when you were deciding what to bring.
I didn't want to lose pictures of my kid because she's passed, right? So I needed to bring her with me, and I brought her a baby blanket that I've been sleeping with since she died. So yeah, those were the important things, and the rest is just material.
It's been hot, dry, and windy here in Whitecourt, and Alberta wildfire officials told me last night that while some parts of the province saw rain, it isn't expected to make much of a difference. And thunderstorms even sparked new fires. So crews are expecting a busy couple days ahead. Emily Williams, CBC News, Whitecourt, Alberta.
Yeah, as you saw, they're causing issues right across the prairies, this hot, dry weather. A lot of this also playing into the winds. Let's bring back meteorologist Colette Kennedy with a full look on our forecast.
Thanks, Riley. Yes, I was talking about earlier in the show how we would have a look at that air quality, still have the alert to the southeast, but a statement blanketing a good chunk of the province and, of course, extending into Saskatchewan and into northwest Ontario. And as the winds change direction, that really changes those areas being impacted and has had a real effect on communities like Lynn Lake through the day today. Now, yes, we need some moisture and a few pop-up showers as forecast. A little bit of activity into the evening, but then this dissipates. We don't want the lightning strikes. Luckily, not too much of that in here. But in terms of moisture, we've got several days that we're going to be waiting before we really get more of a soaking rain. And it's going to be after the weekend with temperatures just building in between. So a bit of a trough pushing into Saskatchewan, not really bringing anything significant with it. Otherwise, it is just this large upper ridge that is just dominating the pattern here, and we're seeing those winds shifting directions where we've gotten into more of a south to southwesterly flow. Now, not perhaps as strong as yesterday with some of those gusts, but it's this change in direction that's posing the problem for some of our communities as it's moving not only the smoke but the fires in the direction. And so as it turns towards the northwest, perhaps as we get into later in the day on Wednesday, that could help things a little bit. But I want you to watch. Now, we'll have this area to the east. It dissipates a little bit as we push through time. But watch how the change in the wind direction just takes what is burning in Saskatchewan and pushing it right across the border. That's why Lynn Lake and moving around towards Flin Flon through those areas, you really at the surface have that very poor air quality. So we'll be carefully watching that situation and watching the situation of the building heat. Look at these temperatures over the next few days. Yes, mostly sunny skies. I've got your normal here. It's 22 degrees, so well above that. 30 by Friday. Been a little bit of change in the weekend forecast, only that now Saturday's a little cooler, and it's Sunday that is likely going to be the warmer day where we'll be in the low 30s, potentially into the mid 30s. I mentioned on the horizon there was some rain in the forecast, and we will get to that when we have the 7-day coming up.
And we'll look forward to it. Thanks, Colette. All right, as we head to break, let's enjoy these shots of the beach and the harbor at Gimli. Very sunny, but also very hazy there as well. We'll have more to come. Right after this, stay with us. King Charles delivered the speech from the throne to officially open Parliament in Ottawa. It's the first time a monarch has read it in nearly 50 years. It touched on Canada-U.S. relations and spoke of Canada's place on the world stage as an independent and sovereign nation. Ashley Burke has more from Ottawa.
A royal parade for the history books, designed to put Canada's sovereignty on full display. The pomp and pageantry of this two-day visit, all building up to the main event. The King entering the Senate to read the speech from the throne. A first for a monarch in nearly half a century. The King meeting first with a chamber packed with senators, premiers, and former prime ministers. Then starting his speech on a personal note.
Every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there, straight to my heart.
In his own words, the King sending a message to the world.
I've always had the greatest admiration for Canada's unique identity, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values, and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians.
He acknowledged this is a critical moment for Canada and ended with praise for a country he calls a force of good.
As the anthem reminds us, the true North is indeed strong and free.
Everybody was applauding and nobody was stopping. I thought we would have clapped in there for 5 minutes.
We are not Americans, and we don't feel we have to tell people that, but it was just very clear what is distinct about our national identity.
A moment of national unity as politicians from across the country got up close.
Canada is a different country. Canada is an ambitious country. And, that's a powerful message, like I said, not only for our friends down south, but around the world.
We have an entire country that is making it clear to the U.S. that we are independent and free and not interested in being part of the United States. If this doesn't get through to President Trump, I don't know what will.
The speech from the throne also laid out the government's priorities, from building more housing to addressing the cost of living and spending more in defense to protect Canada's sovereignty. But the Conservatives leader says he needs more details ahead of a vote, and that will be the government's next big test. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Now, alongside those former prime ministers and industry leaders in attendance at the throne speech were several Manitoba Indigenous leaders. Gavin Axelrod now on what they hope comes from the King's visit and from the federal government.
One of the first people King Charles III shook hands with upon arrival to Canada for the first time since his coronation, Assembly of First Nations National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepinak.
Queen Victoria gifted this treaty medallion to Chief Richard Woodhouse on August 21st of 1871.
She says the King's visit can be a step towards improving relations between Indigenous people and the Crown.
We have to reset that relationship and find a new way, and find a way to respect each other more, but also have those tough conversations about actual revenue sharing and, finding a different path forward.
King Charles read the throne speech Tuesday, kicking off the first legislative session under Prime Minister Mark Carney and giving a window into the new government's plans.
It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation.
Indigenous leaders, many from Manitoba, have also gathered in Ottawa. They're watching and listening closely.
Our treaties are with the Crown. And so the relationship that we have with Canada is to understand how you're going to work with us. Not the other way around.
All we are asking for is for justice, for fair treatment, for the integrity of our nations to continue forever. And in that way, we will prosper.
The King's visit to Canada also comes as the country copes with tariffs and threats of annexation from U.S. President Donald Trump. University of Manitoba adjunct professor Christopher Adams says having the King read the throne speech is highly symbolic.
We keep on being poked on this by the President of the United States, but I think it's quite clear that we're a sovereign country, and I think this just sort of adds a different element to it.
Meanwhile, observers of the monarchy filled with excitement.
I hope Canadians are able to appreciate it as well. I think it's something that our country certainly needs.
It's the first time Canada's head of state has opened Parliament since 1977, a moment sure to be remembered and analyzed for years to come. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, who wasn't at the throne speech was former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. He had to miss today's ceremony because he was undergoing heart surgery in Ottawa. Doctors inserted a stent into one of his arteries to prevent it from getting blocked. Chrétien served as Prime Minister for a decade, starting in 1993. He is expected to be discharged from hospital tomorrow. Aside from the throne speech, thousands of Canadians flocked to Ottawa simply to catch a glimpse of the royal couple on their visit. Rafi Boudjikanian was out speaking to them on this historic day.
Before most people were at work, the Keeners were on watch duty.
I got here at 7:30 because I knew there would be a crowd. And as a proud monarchist, I'm very, very happy to be here and would always want to kind of get a front shot of the king.
The national capital got so crowded most people indeed only caught a glimpse. But for this group that traveled hours from Ontario's Kawartha region, still closer than they've ever been despite the much further distances they've previously gone.
It's just so exciting. Yeah. Been waiting a long time to see them in person. So we've gone to London a couple of times, but never got to see them anyway.
A momentous occasion even for those who have yet to see much of the world.
She may not remember this day, but we'll take lots of photos.
We gave away 500.
No pictures for these royal supporters, but they brought their own edible effigies.
I'm here because my mom, 95, she got out of bed and voted. She believes in Canada, in the freedom that we have.
But not everyone who showed up in Ottawa was as sweet on the king and queen.
In the name of standing up to Trump and the U.S., Carney is bringing a relic of feudalism, the monarchy, as a means to supposedly defend the sovereignty of Canada.
Pleasure to meet you, Charles. Recent polling shows 45% of Canadians support this visit to open Parliament. Fewer people got to shake the King's hand, but they sure tried.
Just amazing to see that they're here, that they came to Canada.
A trip that ended with this solemn moment, the crowd clearing for the king to lay a wreath at the National War Memorial, the very monument unveiled by his grandfather, the first reigning monarch to visit Canada 86 years ago. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, turning our attention overseas, a new aid distribution system in Gaza has opened its first hub there. It is called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and it's backed by Israel and the United States. But the UN has some concerns about the organization. The CBC's Tom Perry reports.
There were some chaotic scenes as this new organization, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, began handing out assistance. At one of its distribution centers today, video shows people overrunning the site, many of them making off with boxes of aid. Now, the group is playing it down. It says that at one point, yes, there were a lot of people looking for aid. It says that its personnel stepped back, and it says allowed a small number of people to take aid, but it says operations are back to normal and that it managed to distribute around 8,000 boxes of assistance today. Now, the reason why this group will really even exists, it's backed by the United States and by Israel. Israel says that under the United Nations, food aid was being siphoned off, stolen essentially by Hamas, either for its own fighters or to be sold on the black market. The United Nations rejects that, and today it weighed in on the controversy.
We do not participate in this modality for the reasons that we have given. It is a distraction from what is actually needed, which is a reopening of all the crossings into Gaza, a secure environment within Gaza, and faster facilitation of permissions and final approvals of all the emergency supplies that we have just outside the border and needs to get in.
Now, there have been questions around the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Who's backing it? Where's its money coming from? And humanitarian groups say that really what it's doing is militarizing, privatizing, and politicizing humanitarian assistance in Gaza. What they say, and that's the UN saying this as well, is what the Israeli government needs to do. Israel's been blockading Gaza for weeks. It says what Israel needs to do is open up the territory, make sure that aid can flow in, and make sure that the people of Gaza who desperately need assistance get it. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
State-run media in China says at least 5 people are dead and 19 injured in a chemical plant explosion in the eastern part of the country. 6 others are still missing. It happened in Shandong province around noon local time on Tuesday. The blast spewing plumes of smoke into the air and damaging windows in nearby buildings. It prompted a rescue operation at the factory, which employs more than 500 people, according to company records. The plant manufactures pesticides and chemicals for medical use. An early monsoon has flooded large parts of Mumbai, India's financial capital. Torrential rain submerged streets and snarled the commutes for many in the city, but there was some benefit too, relief from high temperatures and much needed rain for farmers. The storm arrived 16 days earlier than usual. Monsoon season typically begins around June 11th. It's the earliest monsoon to hit the region in 35 years. Still ahead, frustration on board a delayed Air Canada flight, a pilot venting to passengers about the shortage of air traffic controllers. That story coming up next. Welcome back. Caught on an exclusive audio recording, a frustrated Air Canada pilot gives passengers his opinion on why flights like theirs keep being delayed. John Hernandez investigated what he told them.
It's costs the company a lot of money. It costs business people a lot of money.
Delayed and disillusioned, an Air Canada pilot vents to passengers stuck on the tarmac at Vancouver International Airport.
Since we got the time, if you want to write a letter to your MP and tell them what's going on, maybe they could address this problem.
The problem, a shortage of air traffic control workers. Delays and cancellations at YVR have been mounting for weeks, leading to this rant captured by a CBC reporter.
We believe that there's a lot of evidence that the people in charge of air traffic control, NAV Canada, are keeping, like the air traffic controllers are keeping the numbers low to keep the overtime up.
A charge denied by NAV Canada, the private nonprofit that operates air navigation across the country. It is in the midst of a major recruitment blitz to ease its labor crunch. In a statement, it said, "We leave no stone unturned in supporting a candidate's success. As a result, we refute any suggestion that controller trainees are disqualified from training in order to protect overtime." The pilots' union says the shortage is causing problems from coast to coast.
Most people that have traveled, I'll say, have noticed a delay or of some sort somewhere across the system, whether it's in YVR or elsewhere.
Smaller airlines find themselves particularly vulnerable.
Nobody likes getting delayed, and it is often the air operator that is blamed for the delay.
This Indigenous-led airline flies from YVR to Vancouver Island and reports delays nearly every day.
So we're getting delays anywhere between 20 minutes and 2 hours. And when you are operating a 25-minute flight, that's significant.
There are about 2,000 air traffic controllers in Canada. Their union says hundreds more are needed to clear these planes for takeoff. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Canadian Dermatology Association is providing some much-needed break out of the sunshine at a daycare in the William White neighbourhood. The structure is at the Makanusag Intergenerational Children's Centre. Memory Cadegas works there and says it will be used a lot.
In early childhood education here at Makunseg, we come outside all day. We try to be outside and do a lot of land-based education for the children. So this will help the children, have shade and be protected.
Funding for the shed came from the Skin Doctors Group's National Shade Structure Grant Program. It says everyone should protect themselves from the sun's harmful rays. A section of the Red River north of Winnipeg could see fluctuating water levels in the coming days. A significant amount of rain in the southern part of the province has led to unusually high flows into the Red River. As a result, the St. Andrews Lock and Dam near Lockport will release more water. That will cause water levels to drop between Lockport and Lister Rapids, while areas downstream may see levels increase. People are asked to use caution in the area. Well, another hot, dry and sunny day across much of the province today. Probably a great thing to have a little bit of shade. You'll also need some water in the coming days as well. Let's get a full check on your Manitoba weather forecast with meteorologist Colette Kennedy.
Yeah, thanks, Riley. It's such a distinct pattern and sort of a blocking pattern, as we say. Well, we really saw that kind of last week across North America. Not quite the same thing, but an upper trough in the east giving generally cooler conditions, even some wet weather headed towards the Great Lakes, but it's this broad ridge we're really focusing on because we won't see the weather pattern changing, and if anything, we have those temperatures climbing. And even through the overnight hours, we begin to see where the readings aren't necessarily going to be dropping down into some of these single digits, so you don't necessarily get the relief through the overnight when you can't get things cooling down there. Hour by hour, as we're checking out what's happening through the north, Lynn Lake, for example, again, tomorrow we are talking about readings up into the upper 20s there. And of course, those not just mid, but upper 20s were spreading southward, and we're experiencing that into tomorrow as well. Winnipeg, quite likely, we're going to hit that 27 degrees into the afternoon hours, but even Swan River at 28, Melita, a little more comfortable there at 24, but still with all kinds of sunshine to go around. It is that time in the forecast where we get to show you our featured dog of the day in our dog walking forecast. And this one, who likes their car ride? This is Maggie from Carolina, and we really appreciate even the squinty eyes. It might have been a little sun in Maggie's face there. Yeah, she's a good girl. How about the forecast? Is it a good one for dog walking? Well, you'll notice what I've done here is I have given you the green paw through much of the day. The reason I've gone to yellow here is we just want to be mindful as we do have these building temperatures and the heat, especially the asphalt that can hold on to the heat and then transfer it to the paws. So when we get into the warmer temperatures, we just need to be a little more careful here and maybe even putting the booties on the dog paws to kind of help with things. And lots of water, not just for the four-legged folks, for the two-legged ones as well, Riley.
Great tips. I love it. Thanks, Colette. Well, apocalyptic, that is how some describe the devastation near Lac du Bonnet after a wildfire tore through the area. Charred shrapnel, scorched foundations, and blackened trees are all that remain of some properties. Leanne Ross Martin and her husband Ed were among those who lost their property, but now they're not sure whether they want to rebuild. They spoke this morning with CBC's Marcy Marcusa.
My dad's saying was you would lift up a hammer to fix something or add on or whatever it may be, and there was 2 other hammers in the air at the same time with you before you even knew it. Our community, you know, growing up in it, we ran through yards. We weren't allowed to play on the road, and everybody was like a family. We have friends. My parents had friends down there that, you know, were like aunt and uncles.
You weren't here and didn't have to evacuate. You were in Winnipeg, I understand. So how did you find out that you lost everything?
Later on Tuesday night of the 13th, we got pictures sent to us by someone who could not figure out, one of our neighbors that could not figure out whether we had cottages or we didn't. So he took a boat out and took a picture. So that's how we found out later on Tuesday.
We're talking to a lot of people. I mean, it's hard to believe this is really just 2 weeks ago. Fire is so immediately devastating. We're talking to people this morning that say that they feel like they're okay in one moment and the next minute they're just not. How are you holding up, Leanne?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. A roller coaster of emotions. Being able to see, you know, and actually touch things last Wednesday was helpful, but it is a grieving process, especially when you've been there your whole life.
Ed, you're representing 19 different property owners, some seasonal, some year-round. Tell me a little bit about what you might need to feel confident enough to consider rebuilding.
There's a few things. You know, first and foremost, you know, our hearts go out to the lives of the Knoll family. What we want to make sure. Anything that we do prevents that type of tragedy in the future. Given how this unfolded, we do believe that was unnecessary, and you know, we want to make improvements to prevent that from ever happening again. Also important to note that we're very grateful for the work that the emergency responders did. We've heard great things from the folks that were evacuated that had to coordinate and help the evacuees. We recognize and understand the risk that the firefighters put their lives on the line to save people's lives, property, and you know, the surrounding environment. But the actual emergency response plan, we can do better.
I want to ask you about one of your ideas here, because one of the ideas about doing better is is not just the alert system, but it's also the idea of maybe building an outroad. Is that right?
Yeah, that's one of the ideas for sure. The Wendigo Road is, you know, where you are standing there. That's basically the only, that's the second way out. You're standing really close to a crossroad between Langston Way and Wendigo Road. From that point between Langston and the end of the cottage subdivision at Crosden Point, there is no second egress road. One of our longtime residents spoke of a meeting in 1977 where the officials were announcing the development of the Grosdon Point Cottage subdivision, and it was at a place out near where you are there. And at the time, the government committed to building an access road, a second access road to Grosdon Point, and then over the coming years, they said, "Yeah, it's coming," and that was 1977. So we're closing in on 50 years. So that is definitely something that would ease a lot of concerns, both for ourselves as well as firefighters.
Okay, so you've probably heard the saying, eat your veggies a time or two, but how about playing your veggies? We'll explain in our Daily Lift, and Colette is back with our 7-day forecast. We're back right after this. Stay with us. The City of Winnipeg has extended the closure of the Louise Bridge. The city says both traffic lanes, north and southbound, as well as the sidewalks, will now remain closed until this coming Sunday. The bridge was closed over the weekend due to construction and maintenance. It was supposed to reopen on Monday, but that has been pushed back. The city has not said why the closure was extended.
So let's go ahead and just take a look at really focusing on some of these numbers. We know we have this broad ridge of high pressure in place, and with that upper ridge, not really talking about, other than a few light showers this evening, anything significant for several days, certainly through the 5-day forecast, and the temperatures climbing. Just a tiny bit of a dip and a slight chance for some pop-up showers or thunderstorms Saturday afternoon. Do be aware of that when you're making your plans for the weekend. But just rolling this forward to give you that 7-day forecast, because always it's that 7th day, right? Yeah, finally we could certainly use it, and it looks like we will have the potential to get some, not just light rain showers, perhaps some soaking rains even Monday night, and then moving on into Tuesday. And boy, is that going to put the brakes on the high temperatures too.
All right, we'll be holding on to that. Thank you so much, Colette. Well, like me, you've probably heard the phrase, eat your veggies, a time or two as a kid. Maybe your kids are picky eaters. But have you ever wondered if maybe there might be another use for that carrot that is just hiding in the back of your fridge? After this story, though, you, well, may. Here's your daily lift. What sounds like Mozart can be heard outside this farm store in a southern English town. This is the London Vegetable Orchestra. The musicians create musical instruments carved out of locally sourced produce, squeezing famous tunes out of carrots, zucchini, and bell peppers. And when the musical carrot goes soft, popping it into water makes it firm again. The orchestra has even performed for King Charles, who's known to have given the carrot recorder a try himself. The players say they have unique challenges, particularly with the edible mouthpieces. There's another thing that I'm probably not talented at, creating something out of a vegetable. I can play them though. I'd probably be pretty good at that. That's our program for this Tuesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Colette and I are back with you again tomorrow. Have a great night.